Welcome into the Rotoworld Basketball Show. We can finally judge the Damian Lillard trade a little more properly after they continue to make some noise in the NBA. It's Vaughn Dalzell, Dan Titus, Raph Johnson here to break down all things fantasy NBA. And Raph, you kind of stole the show last week with your black hat comment right off the top. Now, talking Jrue Holiday, do we get another movie reference as he goes from Portland to Boston across country?
No. I don't think we need one. That was like our first show of the new season, so I think we can just roll right into the news.
I was really hoping this is going to be a reoccurring thing. Maybe like next time if we can get like a reference from the movie Life, Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Like I'm the Pappy reference. I'd really appreciate that.
I'm the baby's Pappy. It's funny that question, Vaughn, because I was going to ask him literally the same thing. I was like, what classic reference is Raph coming with this week? So, yeah, we definitely got to run that back.
Yeah, now it's expected, Raph. So, you did it to yourself. Sorry to do that. But, big news already in the NBA world. Obviously, Jrue Holiday was sent to Boston. Rob Williams in return, who we talked about a lot last week, Malcolm Brogdon, as well as 2 first-round picks, one in 2024, one in 2029. So, right off the top, what is the fantasy value for Jrue Holiday, Raph? And who does that impact the most, in your opinion?
I think his value is going to hold relatively steady. Now, he won't have the ball in his hands as much as he did in Milwaukee, just because you got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Derek White, who can all initiate things offensively as well. But we're talking about a guy who's been a top 50 fantasy player each of the last 6 seasons. He's had 1 season outside the top 75 in his career. Now it's his rookie year. So you pretty much know what you're going to get from Jrue Holiday. I'm not too concerned about him at all. I think maybe Derek White loses a little bit of luster on his fantasy value. He's a guy that a lot of people peg as a potential breakout candidate. That probably doesn't happen now. But I think, Holiday, he can give you enough defensively and in some of the other categories to kind of make sure that he's still going to be okay fantasy-wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think Derek White would be the biggest impact factor, I thought. And, of course, we talked a lot about Porzingis, too. I'm curious to see how they all work together as a unit. Obviously, Jrue Holiday has experience pick and roll with the big men. Dan, were you surprised that this is where Jrue Holiday ended up? What were your initial thoughts on the trade overall? And same question that Rath got.
Yeah, I can't ever count out the Celtics for any kind of crazy deal. Like, it always seems like they have the assets or just some kind of finesse mojo in them to somehow get into the sweepstakes of all major superstars, it seems like. I like the fit for Jrue. They did have to give up a lot of depth in order to get him here. And I do think that they're extremely thin in the front court. You're putting a lot of stock in Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford to hold it down. But I think they're still, a top 3 team in the East. Biggest impact, I think you guys covered it, and it's definitely Derek White. He's definitely going to fall down draft boards a little bit, definitely limiting his breakout potential.
Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We talked about Tatum's MVP odds, and this could be the window for him. Do you think, how does this affect their growth as a duo in particular? And are you hesitant now to, I guess, draft these guys as high because there's more mouths to feed?
I'm not. I still think that Tatum's still locked in as a first-round value guy. Jaylen Brown, I think he was close to that top 50 player. I don't think too much changes there, especially with the new deal he received. He's obviously going to be a focal point of what they do in Boston. So I'm not too worried about them. I think Dan made a good point about Porzingis and Al Horford in terms of their health. Maybe at some point during the season, an O'Shea Brissett becomes a fantasy streamer. If one of those guys down, but he's not someone you're going to be drafting right now. But that's a name to kind of keep in mind. They've got Wenyen Gabriel in for camp, Luke Cornett as well. So if anything, you're looking at those guys as like potential streamers down the line, but they're not really someone that you're going to draft. Like, I don't think this changes anything for them in terms of fantasy value.
Overall consensus on the Portland Trail Blazers. What do you think about the Brogdon and Robert Williams fantasy value? And then what's it mean for the rest of these young guys on their team?
I think the young guys are pretty safe. I think it's more about Robert Williams. Is he going to come off the bench? I think he is. He's been a per-minute beast in the course of his career. Can he stay healthy, though? So at this point, the youth movement is in full effect. I think DeAndre Ayton's going to be solid, top 40, top 50 guy now that he's motivated, we'll see what he can do defensively. I think he kind of took I think the effort wasn't really there the last couple of years because obviously he was disgruntled, but I think this is a bright future for the Portland Trailblazers, and even more excited about their fantasy appeal for people like Anthony Simons, because I'm not really too worried about Malcolm Brogdon staying in Portland, just being where he is in his career, and he wants to win. So I think they'll find a way to find a new home for him eventually.
Yeah, and Dan, you missed it because Ralph said the same thing. He said there's going to be better value down near the trade deadline as the season goes on than there is right now. So glad to see you guys thinking alike here and brushing me up on my NBA stuff. So NBA training camp starts soon, people. It is your chance to get an assist with the fantasy draft guide here at Rotoworld Basketball Draft Guide. Visit NBCSports.com. Use the promo code HOOPS23 at checkout. You get a 20% discount, and you also get a $10 e-gift card to Fanatics and free season-long tools with your draft guide purchase. So get lots of help from the crew here at NBC, and a $10 gift card. As we told you how we'd spend ours last week. But again, I'm wearing the Bulls hat today. We saw the Hartford Whalers for Raph and a Phillies hat for Dan. Now, I lived in Hartford up until about a month ago. I missed the city, actually, because Pennsylvania sucks, people. The Phillies will get a win tonight. Oh, I'm from PA, I can say that. But the Phillies will get a win tonight. I'll rep the East Coast of Pennsylvania. I'm a Western PA guy. Let's talk about some West Coast basketball because there's a couple injuries, guys, that are definitely worth noting. I want to personally start with a guy who was a points, rebounds, assist machine and someone I drafted second round first pick last year, Domantas Sabonis. When healthy, this guy's an animal. He's avoiding offseason surgery. Raph, can you talk a little bit about Sabonis and what you're expecting with his fantasy value in this injury to his thumb?
Yeah, I expect more of the same. The injury was to his non-shooting thumb, his right thumb. He's left-handed. Not having to undergo surgery, and he also didn't represent Lithuania at the FIBA World Cup, so he had the whole summer just recuperate and work on his game. I'm expecting more of the same from him. I think he's going to be a top 20, top 25 fantasy player, and that may be selling him a bit short. I think he's got the opportunity to potentially be a top 15 player. I'm interested to see what happens with Sasha Vezenkov, their new offseason signing. You get another shooter in that rotation. Maybe Sabonis adds another assist per game to his average. So I think Sabonis is a rather safe fantasy big man coming into this season.
Where do you rank Sabonis, Dan? Pre or post injury? Does it move the needle at all for you?
No, not at all. I'm not concerned. I think it's actually better that he's coming into the season fully healthy, avoided surgery. He played through it last year. This guy's an Iron Man, and I'm not concerned about taking him an early second round pick this season. And I think that the Sacramento Kings are for real. They're only going to get better, and he's one of the best passing big men and will lead the league in rebounding. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be available, ready, one of the better fantasy players that you can grab there.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch Sacramento Kings this season. They reminded me they're the NBA version of the Pittsburgh Pirates. When the Pirates went 20 years without making the playoffs, then they make it for a couple of years, and they're just so fun to watch, so exciting. So that is the window for the Kings in general with the Pirates, what happened with them. So have fun, people. One thing that I did get right, Rath, well, not necessarily yet, but I think I'm going to get right from the show last week because there's not going to be much. But I said Draymond Green could be coming off the bench, and he's got an ankle injury, keeping him out 3 to 6 weeks. He'll be coming off the bench at some point early in the season, my friend. So Steve Kerr, you just got your starter situation figured out. What does this mean for Draymond and his ankle and the Warriors in general?
Well, we'll see. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. He was seen after practice, walking around. He did some stationary bike work. No on-court work still. They're one of those teams where the goal is to be healthy and clicking on all cylinders come April and May. They're not too worried about late October. So, they'll probably work him in gradually once cleared. So you may start the season coming off the bench. But I think eventually Draymond's going to be a fixture in the starting lineup. And it's going to come back to that question we discussed last week. Will it be Chris Paul or Kevon Looney who comes off the bench? I feel like Looney's going to be the odd man out just because he seems to be a go-with-the-flow guy. Doesn't rock the boat in any way, shape, or form. So they'll probably assume it's easier to tell him, hey, we're going to need you to come off the bench, even though he's the incumbent here. Chris Paul's the new guy. In theory, the new guy should be a bit more willing to sacrifice, but if that's not the case, then yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw how he reacted when he was asked at Summer League about possibility coming off the bench. So it may be an easier conversation to have with Kevon Looney than it would be with CP3.
I mean, hey, the ego is in all of us, some of us more than others.
Yeah.
Dan, your thoughts on the Draymond injury and Chris Paul's ego?
Yeah, I think we got to start calling you Vaughn the Oracle, because I don't know how you saw that. And then next thing you know, he sprains his ankle out upwards of 4 weeks. So I think in the short term, Raph participated with an industry mock with me last night, and I grabbed Looney with my last pick, which I felt great about because now that he's going to be missing time, that being Draymond Green, there's going to be a good opportunity for him to pick up a lot of rebounds, probably a couple blocks, great for your field goal percentage, never hurts you in turnovers. So if you're looking for a cheap big in late rounds, I think Kevon Looney definitely has some short-term appeal here. Long-term, I think Draymond Green's going to be the starter, and Chris Paul, I think he's going to fit in well because, reports are that he was staying after practice with Steph, working on those dribble handoffs, working on those high screen and rolls. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for these guys to play off of each other. And Chris Paul's a vet, man. And I think as much as he has that ego, he's going to sacrifice in the right ways for this team to win. You know, the one thing that guy needs and wants is a championship. So I think he'll do whatever needs to be done to make that happen. So I think he'll preserve his fantasy value. Probably won't be as good as years past, not a top 30 guy by any means, but I think he'll be good, solid as like a top 60 and a back end depth type of point guard that you can get some assists with, shoot a good field goal percentage, and get you a couple steals. But just don't be looking for him to give you, 20 a night. He's long ways away from that.
No. I mean, the best thing about Chris Paul, in my opinion, is his ability to read the games early on, read the pace of play, and determine how the night's going to go. And normally it's just passing, rebound, and defense before he gets into scoring. Scoring comes in the second half of games normally. And as a prop better, that's something that I've noticed a lot the past 2 seasons, and we'll continue to play on there. Let's touch on Khris Middleton. And Dan, I'm going to start with you here because it's not very clear on his time frame, but he's had a lingering injury. Talk a little bit about Middleton and what you're expecting to start the season.
Yeah, so training camp is underway, and Adrian Griffin was talked about Middleton's injury and didn't really give much clarity, which I think is going to be something that we might see or we can expect out of Adrian Griffin, being how tight-lipped he was about this injury. I mean, it's going to be frustrating for fantasy managers, but this is someone that I'm not really excited about heading into the season. He went seventh round in our draft last night, and that seems like actually pretty good value considering who Khris Middleton is, but the fact that he's already not playing is concerning. So I would just be cautious. He's already going to have his usage take a substantial hit with Damian Lillard in town. I just don't know that I can get excited about him putting up 25 and 5 again. I think he's going to be probably more about an 18, 5 and like 3. There's going to be some regression here. So just be conscious of that before, actively rostering Khris Middleton, especially with this injury concern.
What round would you be looking at, Raph, on Khris Middleton?
I think in years past, you're thinking 5th, maybe 6th round. I'm thinking I'll let someone take him if they want to grab him off the board before that point. I'm 7th or 8th for me, and that may be a bit high depending on how things go in training camp with his workload. Didn't practice at all today, being Wednesday. Giannis and Damian Lillard were both limited in Wednesday's practice, but there didn't seem to be any major concerns there. Middleton, with his recent medical history, there is more of a concern. So yeah, if you're in my league and you want to take him in the 5th or 6th round, I'll shake your hand and let you go ahead and do it. But like 7th or 8th, that's when I'd probably consider grabbing him because, like Dan said, his usage is going to take a hit. It's going to be Dame time those final 5 minutes, and that used to be a period that Khris Middleton was asked to dominate in terms of having the ball in his hands as a scorer. So, yeah, I'm not very excited about Khris Middleton in fantasy basketball either.
Yeah, no, I think that's the correct way to approach it. If you're looking for a value on him, it's not going to be in the round where his ADP is. And a lot of people, it's a name brand. Again, he's a name brand player where you know him. So people are going to take him and feel a little more confident than other guys around him. One player I'm not feeling much confidence about, but maybe Dan will once he sees a couple more videos of him shooting 3-pointers. Ben Simmons is healthy. He's ready, he says. I don't believe in anything Ben Simmons related except that he won't be on the court for a whole season. Dan, what is your opinion on Ben Simmons entering this year and being ready to go?
Man, we got to keep on going back to this. Like every year, it's between the summer videos and now he's actually participating in media day. So of course he's going to tell you how great things are and how healthy he is. And Jacques Vaughn saying, "Oh man, it's so great to have somebody of his caliber running the offense again." Everyone's singing his praises. I'm not buying it. I don't know that I can do it. It's late, man. He's going to go outside the top 100. So relative to his cost, like he's cheap. So if you're missing field goal percentage, assists, and rebounds, like sure, take a flyer on him. The one good thing I can say about Ben Simmons is that he has 3-position eligibility in Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, right? Point guard, small forward, and power forward.
Yeah.
So you can plug him into a bunch of different ways, and I think that there's certainly some value there. But you're definitely signing up for a headache and some frustration. We don't know where his head's at when he actually touches the ball in a game situation when he's getting booed. I saw a video of him knocking down 10 free throws in a row. That's probably going to go viral because that's the last time we're going to see him shooting free throws at that rate. The guy doesn't like to go to the line. He's scared of it. So there's definitely flaws in his game. I could buy into it at a certain cost, but it'd have to be the right roster build for me to get into this market nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, making 10 free throws as an NBA player in a row, that's got to be pretty tough, huh? I've never seen that before. But
before you jump on, I would just say I would encourage everybody, make sure you download Yahoo Sports, get on the app. We're drafting a lot. We just did an industry mock yesterday. I'll be doing more mocks, and it'll be great to get in with some of the fans and the listeners as well. So make sure you're playing on Yahoo. And just keep on. Yeah, man, it's open. So get into a public league, a lot of fun. Default setting is points, but you can also play categories if that's what you're into. We have everything for you. So make sure you do that.
Yes, please do that and check it out. And I would love to be in a league with both of you guys here so we can talk some smack, every single week. And I won't be drafting Ben Simmons. You guys could have both of them.
No, we'll let somebody
Simmons
else do
and
that.
Middleton. Raph, I assume you're just on the same page as both of us. If you are, you don't have to go super in depth, but I would like to hear you say, what is Ben Simmons' ceiling this season?
I think his ceiling's rather high. Now, the health is a concern, as Dan noted, but if he can play 60, 65 games, I think he can be a category league monster just because of what he can do as a rebounder, passer, defensive stats. You get good production as well. You're not going to get scoring, and he's a player that you probably have to take in a free throw punt build just because the free throw percentage is going to be pretty low. He's basically what Jonathan Isaac has been, but with additional positional eligibility. You know, you late round flyer, you hope it works out, but you're not really expecting it to work out. But I think, look, we've all had back pain or some sort to varying degrees in our lives. Yeah. I couldn't imagine being asked to play a sport at an elite level while dealing with it. So the fact that he was sitting on a stools at that media day, that may not seem like much, given his job description, but given what he dealt with last season, it seems like a rather important development. So I think he's got a high ceiling. Would I take him with a top 50 pick? Absolutely not.
That's interesting. I found that, I like that take a lot because I didn't expect that to come from you. Dan, for you, in a perfect world, what is Ben Simmons' ceiling in your eyes? And what's his floor, too?
I mean, his floor is in the gutter, not playing.
Just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at like probably a top 150, maybe I think that's the floor, 150, because he was 142 last year. It was just the games played that certainly hampered him, that put him well outside 250. But I think it's realistic to expect. I could get to top 70. That's probably averaging around, 10, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Like he could put up a lightweight Draymond Green stat line and be an easily a top 100 player. So I put the highest mark at 70, and then I'd say, he'd bottom out around the 250 range, even 300 if he doesn't get the games up. But I think that there's still fantasy appeal here. It's just a matter of what your risk posture is. And I bought into it, got and failed. So like, more power to you if you can believe in it. But right now he's going 128th in drafts. So he's cheap. So if he fits the right team and you can punt free throws as Raph suggested, go for it.
Yeah, no, I like the putting the free throws part because I definitely think rebounds and assists, it's going to be there the entire season as long as he plays the games. Fun to hear the ceiling and the floor of Ben Simmons from different people because it is so drastic every conversation. For the last player I want to hit on here in this injury news segment, Daniel Gafford, former Chicago Bull, shout out to my guy. He avoids surgery. He's expected to be out for 2 to 4 weeks for the Wizards. I looked at this roster, and I'm going to have my hot take here be right here on this segment about the Washington Wizards. This is going to be the best team to bet the over all season because they're going to have no defense and be all about offense. I just look at the lineup and see if Gafford's especially out right away. Mike Muscala is your center. Hello, points in the paint. So, Raph, what's Daniel Gafford's fantasy value entering this season? And if he is out, he's out for 2 to 4 weeks. Who does that impact the most positively?
His fantasy ceiling is interesting to discuss just because I think last year a lot of people were thinking highly of him in fantasy, yet the Wizards still kept him at about 25, I think even under 25 minutes per game. And you're hopeful that he can play at least that many minutes per game once healthy, if not get into the high 20s. Then you're talking about someone who could potentially be on the back end of the top 100, in my opinion. But I don't trust the Wizards with his playing time, even though they don't really have too many options behind him. As you noted, Mike Muscala, probably next man up for now. Danilo Gallinari volunteered to play some minutes at center, and no, I respect it, especially coming off the ACL tear. There's no way you can put that man at center and expect to be a functional basketball team. So, yeah, I don't really see anybody who benefits. Maybe Kyle Kuzma can get a few more rebounds in the short term, but I don't really think Gafford's absence is going to boost anyone just because the options aren't all that appealing behind him.
Yeah, Kyle Kuzma made a huge impact last season with rebounds and rebound opportunities. He was actually someone I followed very closely because he was top 25 for a good 2-3 months this season when it comes to rebound chances, and he delivered. Dan, is there anybody that you feel like is positively impacted outside of Kyle Kuzma here with the Gafford news? And you think that defense is going to be pretty bad, right? Like my hot take's correct. They might be the best over team in all of basketball.
Yeah, your hot take is spot on. I actually think that this team is going to go small just for how much talent they have in the backcourt. They got Tyus Jones there. DeLon Wright is still there, and still capable of running an offense. Jordan Poole, obviously. And then you got Kyle Kuzma. This team is just, I mean, it's not only a cone drill. It's just like Swiss cheese. It's like whoever you're going to lane, whatever. Like it's going to be a really bad defense. But I will express some optimism in Daniel Gafford. And Raph's right. This guy never plays over 25 minutes. He's never averaged more than 20 minutes in a game. So I think that there is some room because that front court is so thin that he can play at least 25. And if he plays at least 25 minutes, I think you could look at a low end double type of guy. But I guess the word of caution would be out of 247 games he's played in his career, he's only played 30 minutes 11 times. So there's clearly a motor issue here or something. Like he's always has this like minutes cap. So I wouldn't right now. His ADP is going right around the top 100. That's probably the highest I'd go with it, man. Like I don't see drafting him before the top 100 picks because of that reluctance of any team to play him heavy minutes. But similar to Robert Williams, he could be effective in a low minutes basis. But yeah, I think that there is a little bit of a low ceiling just because of that cap.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up 11 times, man. That's not much at all for a guy his age, but at the same time, it may be a little fatigue issue. I've always thought that he should play a little more, but maybe there's something that we don't know behind the scenes. But I like
crazy.
this.
Doesn't he seem like he's older than 20? Was he 24, 25?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in the league forever, and it's like, bro. Like,
I remember when he got drafted.
Yeah.
He's athletic. Like he's very athletic. Even in college, he was very good athletic up and down the court. But I don't know. Maybe he's on the Zion diet or something. So that could be something
Jack
worth
now,
considering.
man. You ain't seen him?
Oh, I mean, hey,
Zion's
sorry.
Motivated. He's good.
Former Zion diet, the President Fiji McDonald's diet, something like that. But Okay, yeah, Zion. I can't wait. We're gonna be talking about Zion a lot this year, in my opinion, and not about him today, but maybe next week. Guys, get your popcorn ready. Sunday Night Football is back this week, and it's in Northern California. Micah Parsons and the Cowboys are playing Christian McCaffrey and the Niners. Coverage of this battle starts on at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's an NFC game, only on NBC and Peacock. I'm super excited about this one. I'm going to be on the Niners. I am 19, 11, and 2 this year, guys, in the NFL bets. Pretty good. And I'm still in my survivor pools. You know what I'm saying? Like, survivor pools ain't easy week 5, week 6, but we're still here. You know what it is. We're still here.
Who's your pick this week? Who's the survivor? I think I plugged in. I think I got the Dolphins this week.
Same here, my friend. It's a no-brainer. Right. As long as Saquon Barkley is out, do not do anything related to the Giants except fade them. Exactly. But you know who's here this week? Who I didn't expect to be here? Because us three, we were going to show up for this show. But James Harden, he said he's showing up to training camp. I said, "What is
with
this?"
With no fat suit.
Yeah.
Do we believe, Raph? Do we believe that James Harden is going to play for the Sixers and start the season after everything he said and done this offseason?
I believe that he'll play. I don't believe he'll play to his maximum effort. I think that's the concern here. Is he just going to play the role of, this is my final year before I hit free agency. Let's just play this out, grin and bear it, so to speak. Or is he going to just kind of gradually try to set some things off? I don't know what's going to happen there, because when you think back to what happened in Houston and in Brooklyn, when he was on the court after he made it clear that he wanted to leave, he was a productive fantasy player. Now, he wasn't the elite James Harden fantasy player that we came to expect over the years, but he was still a good value player. I don't know if we're going to see that in Philadelphia, just because you also have a new head coach. Probably doesn't care too much about impressing Nick Nurse at this point. And they've got Tyrese Maxey. They've got DeAnthony Melton. Obviously, I'm not going to put Patrick Beverley on Harden's level, but they signed him. Danny Green's back and healthy. There's only so much that Philadelphia can afford to put up with just because of what Milwaukee and Boston have done. And they need to be able to keep pace with them early in the season to get home court advantage. I think it's more important for Philly than either of those teams, because we saw what happened to them in Boston in Game 7 in last year's playoffs. So I think Philly getting off to a hot start is paramount. And if that means they have to sit James Harden as opposed to him just deciding to stay away, I think they may have to strongly consider that if things turn left down there.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation to have with James Harden. And great to watch it from our perspective, see how that unfolds. Because I certainly did not think he was going to be a Sixer to start the season. But now it's starting to point to that indications that he will be. And Dan, I know we talked a lot last week about Tyrese Maxey and how if Harden is out, Tyrese Maxey's fantasy value is skyrocketing in a lot of ways. Now that Harden might be here, what does that mean to you, drafting Tyrese Maxey and James Harden?
So I think Harden is going to end up being one of the more frustrating people to rank, because he showed up. And the cautionary tale that Raph just described in Brooklyn, I remember when he was on Houston and he went out, dropped 40, had like 15 assists or something like that, and then he sandbagged for like until he got traded. So like I could see the same thing unfolding again. So he went second round, number 20, last night in the industry mock, and I thought that was way too early. And that was, cool. He's reported to camp and he looks healthy, but I just don't think, just based off of his history, that he's going to be all in here. So I'm still going to dock him. But I think it still makes sense to draft Tyrese Maxey around where he's going, which is around the 4th, 5th round. I'm totally okay with taking him there because of what eventually is going to happen. Whether James Harden decides to do what he wants to do, Maxey's still going to get plenty of usage in this offense. He's going to be worst the second or third option. I would love to see some growth in him on the assists area, and I think that'll only grow and expand if Harden's out of the way. So I think you're really playing the long game with Tyrese Maxey here. I'm expecting by the trade deadline something to happen, and then you're really looking at Tyrese Maxey going to potentially a top 30, top 40 type guy, because he's going to get that facilitation that he doesn't really have in his game right now. His scoring has always improved over the last 2 or 3 years. knockdown shooter, 40% from three. So I have no questions about Tyrese Maxey outside of just his assist growth, which will definitely go up if Harden's out the way.
True or false to both of you? Is Tyrese Maxey the second best scoring option on the Sixers right now? True or false?
True.
All right, that's all that needs to be said.
Doc Rivers didn't know. That's why he's out of there, man. Hopefully, that's what the assumption is.
Hey,
Nick Nurse, new blood, new energy.
Like,
we don't call him. I called him Doc. I should refer to him as Glenn. There's only one Doc in Philly.
That's hilarious. I've never heard anyone call him Glenn before, but I haven't been hating him enough, I guess, to hear that out there. I haven't been asking my Sixers fans enough. One guy that really piques my interest because last year he set career highs in points per game, assists per game, steals per game, minutes per game, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage. And he's on a terrible basketball team. That's Devin Vassell of the Spurs. His fantasy value is got to be pretty good after getting locked in and everything with San Antonio. So, Ralph, how do you feel about Devin Vassell? Where are you ranking him? And do you think you're going to be ranking him higher than Dan is?
I've long been of the belief that Devin Vassell is the Spurs' best fantasy player. That will change this year because of one Victor Wembanyama. But I still think Vassell is, at worst, a top 75 fantasy player. As you mentioned, the numbers he put forth last season, limited availability because of a knee injury. But if you get 65 games out of Vassell, you're in a really good place in terms of category leagues just because of everything that he brings on both ends of the floor. So, yeah, nothing really changes there for me. The only question I have with the Spurs is who moves to the bench? Will it be Keldon Johnson or will it be Jeremy Sohan? I think it's going to end up being Keldon. That seems to be what a lot of people have thought throughout the offseason. And he hasn't been a great fantasy player, so I don't expect much to change with him. But, yeah, Vassell, very good fantasy player in my opinion.
Yeah, Keldon Johnson's going to get you some buckets, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Sohan could do a little more than that, all-around type of player there. Dan, what's your opinion on Devin Vassell and any other guys that Ralph mentioned? Who are you pretty high on when it comes to San Antonio basketball?
It's Devin Vassell. That's my breakout guy. I just wrote an article about why he's going to be one of the breakout guards this year. Injuries hampered him last year, but for much of what you said, Vaughn, about his increase in every statistical category over his year 3 to year 4. Year 2 to year 3, excuse me. Going into year 4, I think he's going to be a beast. He just got $146 million. That shows that obviously the San Antonio Spurs invested in their future. He's a cornerstone piece. But I think I'm more encouraged by the assists there. Trey Jones is definitely a good point guard, but I think we're going to see a lot of Devin Vassell as a pick and roll ball handler. And he was 83rd percentile last year. And that was with, Charles Bassey and Zach Collins a little bit. Now you got Victor Wembanyama, a way more dynamic offensive player to do that pick and roll with. So I think we're going to see his assists go up even more. It was 3.6 last year in only 30 games. And I think we could be north of 4 here, which would be huge for a guy that has that shooting guard, small forward eligibility. He's an elite shooter, 39% last year. So, I mean, I don't know. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He averaged 18.5 points. I think he could be over 20. And to Raph's point, who are they going to put on the bench? I think it's going to be Keldon Johnson because he's a bucket, right? He doesn't really do much else for you. So why not put him in that 6-man role and kind of let this guy flourish as this creator. And then also defensively, Devin Vassell is just a beast. So, yeah, I can't say any more great things about Devin Vassell. I'm all in this year. And 6th-round value, totally worth it.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people aren't going to want to take him because, again, name brand type situation. Devin Vassell, the team, not as attractive to be betting. They'll be grabbing this guy in, normal fantasy drafts, 8-9 cat leagues. But, yeah, I think Devin Vassell is also a sleeper. So I like the fact that you guys are on both of them. The last thing I kind of want to talk about today with you guys was the Indiana Pacers. It might sound a little crazy, but I kind of want to talk about Tyrese Halliburton's value because I think he could lead the league in assists this season, especially with a lot of these young guys that like to run around like Benedict Mathurin. They got Bruce Brown and Obi Toppin in the starting lineup now. Got to assume Miles Turner's still doing that, going to be the starter as well. So, Ralph, what do you think about this starting lineup for the Pacers? Will they continue to be one of the better fantasy options just because of their pace of play.
Yeah, there weren't really any surprises for me with the lineup they rolled out open training camp. Bruce Brown, given what the Pacers signed him for and what he brought to the table in Denver for that title team, you knew he was going to start. I think Mathurin was pretty much known as well because they moved him into the starting lineup late last season. Buddy Hield to the bench. Given the scuttlebutt about a potential trade with Hield, Mathurin's clearly their future there. So that doesn't surprise me. I think Toppin getting the early nod is probably a nod to his experience over rookie Jarris Walker more than anything. That's going to be an interesting battle to watch throughout training camp. I think both of those guys can still have value, even if they don't crack the starting lineup. Just because you look at the other options, Isaiah Jackson, really haven't gotten too much out of him from a consistency standpoint. Jalen Smith got his opportunity to start last season, and it went terribly. So I don't expect to see him back in that competition. So Toppin, the pick and roll chemistry between he and Tyrese Halliburton could be really interesting to watch. He's a high flyer. The Knicks did not use him as they should have. Obviously, you got Julius Randle there, kind of tough to do. But, yeah, I think Toppin could be someone. If he gets that starting job, maybe he's a potential breakout candidate. Halliburton's a top 5 fantasy player for me to answer your other question.
Let's go. I love to hear that because, I was thinking if I have a late first round flyer, I'm probably taking a hard look at Tyrese Halliburton. If he stays healthy, he's a guy that's going to average 18 and 12, in my opinion, something of that nature. Dan, hot or cold on the Pacers and their fantasy players? How are you feeling?
Feeling good about it, man. And you're not going to get Hallie anywhere beyond probably 6, I think, in most drafts.
That's
hot. I think he's now officially, unless someone wants to take Steph Curry over him, I could see the argument, the case for it. But I think with the double-double, 20 and 10 potential with Halliburton and the steals and the efficiency, like you just can't, and he plays games. So you can't pass that up. He's a top 5 guy, like Raph said. For the Indiana Pacers, though, I think that this is I like the change, right? Like what Raph described, the Isaiah Jacksons, the Jalen Smiths, very underwhelming, not only in real life, but also especially in fantasy. So Obi Toppin gets an opportunity to start. That is definitely a position I'm going to be watching, the battle I'm going to watch between him and Jarris Walker. I think he's got the edge. Obi Toppin is actually a pretty efficient basketball player. He can shoot the 3. Solid at the line. I expect him to be probably around that 46% from the field. It's more about can he get the stocks, and I think he can get steals. He's had a history of every time as a starter. I think 15 games as a starter, 13 steals. So that's definitely a pretty solid contribution there. Not much for blocks though. But what I'm really excited about is that Lob City potential with Tyrese Halliburton. Man, that's going to be a really exciting team to watch. Ben Mathurin. I noticed Raph got him in the 10th round last night in our industry mock, and I was pissed. I think he's going to be good, man. And I think that the knock on Mathurin is he doesn't do anything besides score, and that's fair. His role last year was to be the microwave off the bench, and he was, in the conversation for 6th man of the year. So I think he can make some leaps in terms of his playmaking. We know he can get to the line very easily at an elite level already as a second-year player. So I'm really excited for his growth going into this season. And I think 10th round is about right where I would expect to pay for him. I think he's worth taking that late round flyer on to see if he hits, because I think there's a lot of upside there. It's just the question is, how much can he grow his game? Is he going to rebound more? Is he going to be more committed on the defensive end? Because that's what Rick Carlisle, that's what he builds his teams on. Like, if you don't play defense, you're not going to play. So I think I've heard a lot of good things coming out of camp that Mathurin's committed on both ends, and he has the size and the length to be a disruptive, 3-and-D wing.
Yeah, well, for a coach that's preaching defense, they sure were in a lot of 129, 126 games last season. But I think Benedict Mathurin will be fine. I think his
Pacers are on the way
up,
man. That's definitely a squad I'm looking forward to. Like win total overs, I like that a lot for the Pacers.
Yeah, I'll be entering a lot of competitions where I do all the win totals for every NBA team in hopes of winning hundreds of thousands or $1 million. And the Pacers were a team I'm like, I'm taking the over. Everyone's going to take the under on the Pacers. I'm taking the over. I like them a lot. And, it's hot take time, gentlemen, before we leave. I'll make this happen every single week. So you guys better have something ready or off the cusp. But, mine might not be a hot take because I said this to my brother over the weekend while we were dealing with our sicknesses. And this guy agreed with me. But when I looked up the numbers, he actually finished 5th in MVP voting last year. That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I said he's going to finish top 5 in MVP voting this year. His window is right here the next 2-3 years with the Thunder getting a lot better every season. All they got to do is win 55 or 60 games, which sounds insane because it is right now, but they'll get better. So that's my hot take. SGA is going to be, once again, a top 5 MVP guy, and I'm going to say he finishes 4th. Who wants to go next?
So who's going to enter the MVP conversation that normally wouldn't, or that's not currently in the conversation? That is tough. Raph, you got someone on the top of mind?
I don't have an MVP guy in terms of a hot take, but what I will say is I'm just going to go scalding hot and say that Derek Lively will do what Walker Kessler did in fantasy basketball last year.
I like that.
That's going to be about a top 50 guy. He and Olivier Maxence-Prosper will start Dallas's preseason opener on Thursday out in Abu Dhabi. The competition for both spots is still wide open. You know, Lively's going to have to beat out Rashawn Holmes and Dwight Powell. Omac's going to have to deal with Josh Green. But I think in terms of Lively, what he can potentially bring to the table, I think we discussed him a bit last week, in terms of a Tyson Chandler type player. I think he can get the rebounds and blocks you need to be an impact fantasy rookie big. So I'm going to say Walker Kessler 2.0 this season for Derek Lively II.
I love that. Yeah, we talked up him a lot last week. Say if he gets that starting job, he's going to make an impact there. I mean, he will be the only guy on the roster playing defense, so that makes a lot of sense, right?
Man, I'm just scrolling down this list of like MVP guys. Man,
don't say Ben Simmons.
I wish we could get there. Yeah, Ben Simmons is going to be a top 30 player this year. I'm going to say Darius Garland is.
You could lead the league in assists. That's what Darius Garland.
All right, let's do that. I think that's a nice hot take. I'll say Darius Garland leads the league in assists. And I guess the reason why I'm so high on Darius Garland is because he plays a lot of games. The backcourt, you know, obviously speaks for itself with Donovan Mitchell. There's so much talent there, but I think we'll see more of involvement with Evan Mobley. I think Evan Mobley's going to take that leap that many expected him to take. I expect him to take it last year. Maybe a little bit less of Jared Allen on the floor, run a little bit more of Evan Mobley at center. Then you have a little bit more pace, more offensive output. So I think Darius Garland. We'll put him. I'll put Darius Garland top 15. Bold. That's bold. That's way more bold than what I was doing last year or last week.
Rat said, "Yeah, that's bold." We'll keep it there then. That was the Rotoworld Basketball Show. It's a pleasure doing this with you guys. Dan Titus, Rath Johnson. I'm Vaughn Dalzell. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, give us a listen or watch by going to amazon.com/music/NBC Sports to get more of us and hot takes and all. We keep it coming. We'll see you guys next time.